Quality versus quantity, the epic battle of all time, the biggest social media debate that has gone on for ages. It's like the Ben Askren and Jake Paul going at each other. It's the big fight. Quality versus quantity when it comes to your social media content, right? Because you have certain people, the Gary V's of the world, where it's like everything, put it out, right? Who cares if you have the lights or the camera, if it's a crappy iPhone quality, just put that content out there and like do like 5 posts a day and all this. And then there's the other side of things where it's like everything's got to be perfect. We need the perfect lighting, we need to hire editors, all this. Vic, where do you land on this spectrum?
Okay, so this is a very valid debate because, every platform is different. Instagram is the type of place I feel where, if we're talking about Instagram, where you want to look really good when people land. And the stories are kind of built for you to be a little more spontaneous. Now, when it comes to a place like YouTube, you also want to be really, really high quality when people land. Because if your click-through rate isn't high and your watch time's really low, then you won't get pushed to new audiences. So there has to be an element of quality there. Now, that being said, my philosophy is if you can dial in the quality in advance, something like this, like where the quality, we already have it dialed in, but if we wanted to, we could be putting out an episode every day if we wanted to, right? So I think quality and quantity is the answer there.
Yeah, and a lot of it is about self-awareness of who are you, right? What is the stuff you want to put out? Because, okay, let's say you're a travel photographer, then yeah, you shouldn't be putting out your like iPhone quality photos unless you're really good at that. But again, and then if you're, let's say, more entrepreneur and it's more about getting information out, well, that doesn't have to have the 4K Cine red camera to make that. It's about what information you're showing.
Right.
So being self-aware of, okay, what is my brand? What's my personal brand or my company's brand? What are we about? And then you can make that decision easier.
Yeah, I think the whole debate, or specifically what you brought up is like where Gary V stands, is that by having a ton of content on different platforms, you're not really paying money to be there for the most part. And by having all that content on there, it's kind of like free real estate. Like imagine like there was a big field, right? And no one owned it. And it was just like, whoever goes there and camps, you can have it. It's all yours. Like, wouldn't you take as much as you can? And I think that's where he's coming from. But then on the flip side, if your content, and I mentioned this before, if your content isn't performing, the algorithms are most likely going to stop showing you to people. So it's like almost like worthless.
Well, also I just think, okay, who is Gary Vee talking to though? Like who's the audience, right? And I think a lot of times the people that he's talking to are people who aren't even really, they're scared to post on social media in general. They haven't really started. It's probably a lot of personal family type content that they post just about their personal life, and they don't share their career expertise and so forth. So he's like, because it's true, it's like, okay, if you're at beginner level ground zero here, we need to take one step forward. So just post whatever you have, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually we can get to the quality part of it.
But he also is pretty well known for saying that you should be posting 100 pieces of content a day. Like, dude, what are you talking about? I don't have 100 conversations in a day, let alone 100 pieces of content in a day. What do you think about that?
Well, it's interesting though how he frames it, because it's not that you're making 100 different pieces of content for all these channels. It's more like, and how he explains it is that, okay, so this podcast, for example, right? We're going to take an hour or so to make this podcast, to actually like physically do it, talk about it. But then from this podcast, so the podcast itself, that's one piece of content. Then we can make 7 TikToks from that. Then we could have someone transcribe it and make blog posts from it, right? And so forth. And you can like find creative ways to take your one main long form piece of content and then cut that down to smaller pieces.
Okay, so this is funny because this is we didn't plan on talking about this, but this is something I actually do want to talk about. Is so much content is just built to get you there now, and I just feel like there's such little value just in general. Like I used to vouch for YouTube. I used to really, really vouch for YouTube. And just this week, I've just been feeling like there's a lot of false promises on YouTube. Like you see the screenshot, one promise that will get you super mega rich. And it's like, you watch it and it's just like, oh, you got a journal. And it's like, bro, what are you talking about? That I feel is like the essence of YouTube now, is like, it's just coaxing people into watching your content and then basically manipulating them to stick to the end. And obviously, like, we're gonna use good thumbnails here. We're gonna try and get you to watch our videos here too. But overall, as a channel, as a platform, I've always stuck up for it, and I've just felt lately it's just full of false promises, and it's just like distraction after distraction.
And I agree with you totally. I hate also on the entrepreneurial side of content where it feels that people aren't being honest with actually how they got to where they got, you know? Like you said, they'll use some clickbait thumbnails like, this is what got me successful. And then it's like some daily habits, which I get, yeah, it's good to have a morning routine or so forth, but it's like, okay, like what actually happened? Like give me the dirt, and also give me like the hardships that happened and the times you failed. You don't hear about that as much.